and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. I'm your host, Rob Kammer, and this week we are sitting down with Black and the Brave graduate, former SCW Pro Tag Team Champion, and, well, maybe pretty soon Destination 6 Heavyweight Champion? Who knows what the future will bring, but we are sitting down to talk with Casey Jax, going all over the place with this episode to prove that we are a couple of well-rounded individuals, bringing up philosophy, bringing up low blows, and then most importantly, though, talking about Casey's young career. He's about 3 years into the business, and has seen, plenty of sights in the meanwhile, so we kind of sit down, get his story, talk about all the things that, well, are Casey Jax like. So let's go ahead and just keep things short and sweet, because I hate interrupting an interview to put the ads in, so we're just going to do the ads, get them out of the way right now. And so grab yourself a coffee, grab yourself an energy drink, get yourself a whole coffee maker, and I'll be back with Casey Jax. Hey folks, the Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, the Confusion Wrestling Podcast. With me today in the studio, very special guest that brought up the special on the start of the show. That's great. I'm just botching the intro already, but we're not fixing that in post anyway, because I've started this party. I got distracted by puppers. That's my defense.
Not a big promo guy, are you? And this is your show, by the way.
All right. I got distracted by a pupper. That's my excuse. I am a dog guy at heart, and despite I have a cat mewing outside the other door because she likes to rub her face on the microphone already while I do this. Otherwise, I'd let her in. She's wonderful most of the time, but she likes to rub her face on the computer screen and the microphone, and we can't be having that. But botching aside, sitting in the studio with me this week is Casey Jax. Casey, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, better now that we've gotten through the intro. Now we can really get this show on the road. No, I'm doing good, man. It is a chilly Monday here in Dubuque, Iowa, and I'm grateful to be indoors in the comfort of my own office.
Oh, it's days to like today. I am so thankful to work from home because, I mean, at least I got paid for today instead of just having a snow day, and now I'm out a paycheck. But welcome to the Midwest, everyone. I don't know how much snow you got here, but we got close to a foot plus the wind coming in. So just a party all over.
No, we didn't get hit too terribly, just enough to give me the excuse to stay in.
Oh, I don't need snow for that excuse. I have to jokingly say I live in my mother's basement, which just is a lie, but it's a convenient excuse being a wrestling fan with a microphone. But as he's now biting his tongue, good thing the video not see the light of day. But before we go off the rails, I mean, we'll go off the rails many times because that's how we run things on this here program. But I do like to start the show off with the always original, never asked before question. What made you a fan of professional wrestling?
Oh, man. You know what? If I'm tracing it back to as far as I can remember, it was the video games. I think my first, introduction to what professional wrestling even was from a Nintendo 64 game I'd play with my older brother when I was somewhere in the single digits, and as WCW NWO Revenge, specifically the Battle Royal mode.
Oh yeah.
We never played any other corner of that game other than the Battle Royal mode, doing things like coming out as Paul White. La Parka was a big one. My brother always made it a point to switch on to Laparca to do his taunt. And yeah, like those games were always a blast because battle royals are, when you're a kid, a blast. And then I didn't actually like start watching wrestling until like 2009. And it was like, if I can remember more exactly, it was, I think my first Monday Night Raw was the Monday after Armageddon, where Jeff Hardy won the WWE title. I remember that being a thing because then, like, the following SmackDown, I ended up watching, and that was when, like, the pyro incident happened that led to the build to, like, Mania 25. Then we got to Mania 25, and I saw Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, and the rest, as I say, is history. I think if you're a non-wrestling fan watching that match from Mania 25 and can walk away not an immediate wrestling fan, you don't have a pulse. Like, it is, to this day, one of the best matches of all time.
I can't disagree with like any part of that story whatsoever. Like, this is probably one of the best like origin like stories I think I've had, and not pulling your leg on that, mostly just because I'm despite not having a 64, I was very much a Revenge fan, and the battle royals were where it's at because they were so just kind of chaotic, and you never knew what was coming out, especially if you didn't quite know what was going on in terms of like what WCW was at the time.
Eliminations for real came out of nowhere, which is like
Yeah.
an actual lost art in the battle royal modes in the game these days.
Right? Oh no, I hate the 2K like battle royal because they've made it so it's like super, not necessarily super hard to do an elimination, but like everything's a mini game now. You can't just throw a guy out or power like, and I utilize like SmackDown 2. You could just like power bomb someone out of a battle royal. Like if you had like a certain power bomb, or I had a choke toss in my thing, and you could just like choke toss people over the top rope. And that was just a regular move in your move set. But my best friend and I totally into the Revenge in the battle royals, because it also looked really sick when you did shoulder tackle into a person at the ropes. They would bounce off into the barricade. And
you're so right. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it was great throwing someone over the rope and then running into them, because then they just go flying right off into the barricade, even if they weren't someone who normally got that much air in real life, and just crash. It was great. That and watching Steen come down for the rafters, those are like two of my favorite things, because they actually bothered even in a battle royal he would come out from the rafters and just,
and he was one of like 3 people who entered every battle royal with a weapon, which was always like super OP too. Is like Sting would come out with the bat, Laparca would come out with a trash can for whatever godforsaken reason, and then you got someone with a chair. I can't remember brother with the chair.
Yeah. So it's it's one of the goated wrestling games in my humble opinion. With that, and then of course, WrestleMania 25, Michaels versus Taker. I mean, like one of the greatest. I mean, and not just WrestleMania matches, but like one of the greatest matches in WWE history, at least certainly of the modern era. And there's just so much you can. I mean, both guys you can just learn so much from. But so seeing all these things making you a fan, like how did that kind of affect you deciding to get into the business? Like, what made you decide to cross the barricade?
So that one happened until like much later. I say that just for anyone keeping score at home. I mentioned I started watching in 2009. I was around 12 years old when that happened. I've been in the wrestling business for 3 years at this point, and I turned 30 in like 2 months. So, some quick math here. I didn't start actually wrestling until I was about 26, which for most people, like most of my peers at my experience level, is basically a grandfather.
No DDP though.
No, God no. Well, but I'm not 6'6". So Not 6'6", and my yoga skills are mediocre at best. So what ultimately led to my decision though is just like, again, the I was starting to like get through, the back half of my 20s, just going, I'm gonna start looking and feeling much, much older very, very quickly here if I don't like do something. And that something was just like, well, I have like, I have actual like physical capabilities now. Like this was, like I'd been lifting and like going to the gym for like 5 years at this point, getting, just learning about that and trying to get in like as good a shape as possible. And it's like, well, I guess I could give it a shot. Like this is around the time AEW was getting really popular. So I was also seeing like guys around my age and around my build, like on TV in front of thousands of fans. So it was through like those means that kind of inspired me in a way to just go, I might as well give it a shot. So I started like branching out, looking into like what a career in wrestling would look like, where I could like get myself in. And then once you know it, probably one of the best wrestling schools in the world is in my backyard. So the thankfully at the time I was working like a nice office job. I was working in logistics and like, I've been saving up money for God knows what, man. Well, I found it.
Just because it's in the backyard doesn't always make that decision. I mean, we look at, fellow Black and Brave SCW Pro champion John Bonner, who took the long way from California over this way too. So
Yeah, I did.
I mean, though that does make it handy though that it's like an hour and hour and a half. We'll say hour and a half just to round it up. But drive.
I say an hour and change depending on how like
depends on the
I'm
traffic.
feeling.
Depends on the traffic. Depends on a handful where you're at in your respective area as well. Because I used to travel up that way for work, and sometimes it would be an hour and a half. Sometimes it'd be like an hour and 10 minutes. Just depended on how the lights went, or what time I left this my chunk of the metro area. But so you made your way to the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, and I do want to touch on. Well, I mean, obviously, I wanted to touch on that, but like, as doing the thing that I call research, aka just like looking through like social media and or YouTube, I did come across a testimonial from Seth Rollins. The date didn't pop up on it because I went just like straight to the post. But he put you over in one of his, we'll call it the student spotlights on his Instagram. So like, how did like how did that like kind of like make you feel? or like, or blow your mind, because obviously you've worked with him for a bit, so you know who him, you have a relationship with him, but that social media thing is a whole nother bird. So like, how did you feel about that?
I mean, like it. I think in like just a single word, just grateful. Like I just so incredibly grateful that he was willing to like take all of his students and start this grandiose project to spotlight all of us. It's just another one of those things that really paints the picture of just how much he does care about his students, because it's something like I don't think he's given enough credit for. I feel people nowadays think he's just like too big to be around all the time, and like that he is just putting his name on it so that he can like say he hasn't like just profit off it. I could never consider that like to be a possibility, just because like he takes time whenever he can to make sure that we're on the right path. um so yeah, like that's just one of those things that like it doubled my social media following like overnight. um it got me so much more exposure than like I can't possibly imagine how long it would have taken me on my own. So like I'm just very grateful, very privileged.
I feel like that's something like as someone who only uses social media because he has to, quote unquote, for this podcast, like just like going from nothing to basically blowing up kind of like that just because you got virtual pat on the back plus a tag repost or whatever too, so everyone can just instantly access you. Like that part like is both like exhilarating and terrifying to me. Like I don't know how that like I don't know how I would have been able to manage that. But then again, you know, some a chunk of my chunk of the career is not necessarily based on people knowing who I am on social media either. So yeah, take that.
Yeah,
However,
it's one of those humbling things that reminds you that, like, sadly, when it comes to like anything that involves, like, reaching the masses, it is truly who you know. in in some regards, which like can be, you know, like does imply like a certain luck factor to it, which like it kind of stings sometimes. But also, I think like most, it was Mark Manson, you know, American author, who said like any artistic endeavor you should be willing to do for free, right? So who shouldn't necessarily matter if you're only in it for the money. Get a job.
well, but even artists have to eat like that. They're like we can argue about how much suffering is needed for the arts to, I don't know, produce good art in theory, but you still have to live too, and live well enough to be able to meet those goals. So I don't disagree with that statement. But on the other hand, like if your art requires you to drive and you can't afford gas, yeah.
Yeah, you start with your necessities.
And now we're gonna get deep, start talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that
Ah,
good stuff.
no, God.
People thought we were just gonna get a wrestling podcast out of this. They're gonna be like doubly surprised once they remember how badly I botched the introduction, and now all of a sudden we're talking about art, philosophy, and psychology as well. We're just well-rounded individuals, and I get well-rounded individuals on this here podcast. That's going to be my story that I'm sticking to.
I think like what a lot of people like for a lot of wrestling podcasts is just to see like the layer of depth behind like their some of their favorite performers. And granted, I haven't met a person who Casey Jax is their favorite wrestler yet, maybe, but that's like, especially like when I was only a wrestling fan, like that's what I enjoyed doing. I'm like going to see like, all right, what did they go and talk about here? What can I learn about you? I think that's one of the magical things about like things like this. That's why podcasts have blown up over the years.
I definitely agree, and like as a fan, like I'm not a big podcast consumer, but I do like, especially the guys I do like and kind of sometimes go out of my way to listen to. I'm just like I like hearing. We'll call it the development, and then like if they're like a long term veteran, I do enjoy some of like the old road stories, because I did have the opportunity to just a couple weeks ago talk with Prince Akhenaten, 20-year vet, got to work with Iron Sheik. Like, of course, I'm going to sit here and want a Shiki baby story, you know. But like in my case, sitting in this seat, like I also like getting guys like yourself who are just a couple years into their career, because then I can also pat myself on the back, when you blow up, and be like, yeah, I had Casey Jax on before he was, insert WWE name here, or or however you chose to choose to go
Whoa,
viral.
pal!
Am I setting
Get
too
ahead of
high for you?
ourselves.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything, but I did have someone on the show who did become a WWE ID guy. So, pat myself on the back for, even though he'd been wrestling for a handful of years, and I was certainly not the first to discover him, of course, nor was I for his first interview. But still, got the confusion rub. Now a WWE ID guy. But
The amount of people, they're not zero.
right? One is bigger than zero, and that is the important thing. But going along with this, and like reason like number 8, I brought this the Seth Rollins pat on the back, is just because one of the things I did point out, like saw there, and I went like, oh, that's interesting. As a former rock star, Casey commands the stage, and I'm like, okay. Do we got a rock star on our hands? I mean, granted, I am like 20 years out of the music scene, and even then, like this area's music scene was not my expertise. But do you have a background as a rock star, or is he just putting over, dare I say the word, character?
So before before I we'll just say this. Yes, I I was really big in my local music scene. Before I shouldn't. Wow. Okay. Really big sounds pretentious, but I was very active is more what I meant to say in my local music scene before I decided to get into wrestling, and that actually like kind of played a role into why like wrestling ended up, finding me. Like out of high school decided that what I wanted to do was be like a professional performer, like a professional what I thought was guitar player, and then I realized that I have just zero interest in like practicing guitar scales and riffs that music major things. So I switched over to vocal performance because that big vocals guy, like especially in a lot of the music I enjoy, and did a semester of that, and then the theater department got their hands on me, so I was a musical theater major for a year, and then the financial department of the college got their hands on me and said, "Hey, you owe us $6,000 if you want to keep pursuing a music degree." And I was like, "Wait a minute, something ain't adding up here." The math stopped mathing, so I was just like, "Whatever, I can do this on my own." So I, took my semester each of experience in, guitar and vocals, and just started learning and writing and finding places just to like get in front of people and do my thing, which was a lot of karaoke, if you can believe it. So I was that guy that no one likes to see at the bar, and open mics here and there up until like it gained some traction. I did the last big thing I did was like a local musical was or local theater was doing a show by the name of Rock of Ages, which is just a love letter to like 80s hair metal. With a lot of like some not oh god, I forget the actual artists who were in like whose songs were in it, but you got things like Wanted Dead or Alive with Bon Jovi, Come On Feel the Noise, uh Nothing But a Good Time, just like stuff like that. And that's where like I got to lead in that show, and then everyone in town wanted me doing a set at their bar. um so that's kind of where like the rock star thing like and I take a lot of my wrestling character from like my time in that role. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of character because I'm no front man in a band, but like it is like it's something that I take a lot of pride in my ability to do that.
Oh, and I think it was we'll say the first kind of like iteration of Casey Jax. Like I think that was very much like inspired, at least visually. Like I definitely like it makes sense to me. Like especially now that I'm having it spelled out for me, like right in bold letters. Um, and because like, I mostly think of you prior to a couple of changes. The blue hair, the sparkly blue pants, like that kind of screams like hair metal to me. I'm not gonna lie. And then somehow you got hooked up with wrestling cat, so that then things stopped making sense. But you got title belts out of the dealio, so who am I to question about the sense?
Yep, exactly. That was man. What a strange time in my in my short career. I don't know how that ended up going as far as it did, especially with between you and me, the discrepancy in talent between the two of us. Because man, let me tell you, cats aren't meant for the ring. Cats, tigers, lovers alike. They are just not cut out for it. What could I say?
Despite what some people would say, it's not a lover's business. That's we'll call it that, I guess, or at least I'll call it that. But that being said, it gave you kind of like your first real taste of success, like at least in the wrestling business, as Jax Amore, or what, 2-time, is my math correct?
3-time.
3-time. Sometimes that, like, with some of those shows, they hot potato that belt around, and you go from one of the big park, we'll call it big park shows, or like Mercado shows, where they kind of do things to pop the crowd, and then all of a sudden, like, evidently the adrenaline wears off of the opponents and they lose the title back right away. But still, 3 times, that's even better than 2. Tag team champion within kind of your home base, if you will.
And for the record too, it should have been 4th as well, because, as you know, former stablemate Tori Fox recently held the tag team titles, a position of which they brought me in specifically to be her tag team partner, only for SCW Authority to appoint Tori Fox and Jared Thumb SCW Pro Tag Team Champions. Something to this day I find it unacceptable, truly. Like, it is so unreal that my partner, who got the pin in that match, had to share it with not her tag team partner. When does that ever happen?
And the scary thing is that wasn't even a Sean Morrow decision. Like, usually whenever I see Sean Morrow get the mic, I'm like, oh, here comes a terrible decision to be had. And like, nope, that's a Merrick decision. I'm like, usually his decisions are a little bit more fair on the whole, or at least a little bit more crowd friendly. And I'm not sure if real words escaped my mouth like that night, being in the crowd live, partially just because I'm not mean to Jared Thumb, but I don't always say the nicest things about him, and according to JT Energy, I'm supposed to low blow him and then roll him up, and I can win my first match that way. Even if I guess it's 24/7 rules, and Thumb doesn't realize he's in a match with me at that point. But we've said it out loud enough times, though. He knows not to turn his back on me. So
I like the idea of low blowing Jared Thumb. It brings me joy to think about.
You just gotta think of creative ways to do it. Like a couple of weeks ago, I saw a ripcord low blow, and it blew my mind. I've been watching wrestling for nearly 40 years, and watched a dude do a full-on ripcord drop to the knee.
Please tell me, was it Psycho Mike? Please
it was Psycho Mike.
Let's go!
It was Psycho Mike. For those who want to see it at home, Mystery Wrestling 10 is on YouTube, and Psycho Mike hits a ripcord low blow, and it is glorious. And here's our language warning for the show as well, because in the Mystery Wrestling universe, he is a diagnosed piece of shit, and he lost 2 of his cures. He evidently has found some cures for it, but that Mystery Wrestling event, he had 2 of them. Was it 2? It might have been 3. He might have had like 3 cures, and they've all bad things. I think it was just the 2. He had pills, and then he had the giant shot, and he lost them both. And
dude, I love Psycho Mike so much. His stuff has been popping up on my feeds a lot recently, and it's just so funny. Just such good, entertaining stuff, man.
Yeah, like a 20-year vet, and now he's finally kind of getting these viral moments of kind of the stupid stuff he's doing in Mystery Wrestling. Spoiler alert, knocking on wood, he's in my email right now, so I'm hoping good juju in the world to be able to rub elbows and, I don't know, get low blowed by one Psycho Mike here in the near future. So but now the ripcord low blow is just effing amazing.
Brilliant.
And it's like, I am mildly impressed we don't have, like, as much as the low blow has been used and as many characters over the decades who have used it, I'm surprised there isn't more variety in the low blow. If we just derail things, just talk about the low blow in professional wrestling for a moment.
Well, it's just, like, it's one of those things where, like, the classic, like the the Richard Holiday special, if you will, the
Signature move.
Yeah, the signature move, the low blow. It just like it's one of those if it ain't broke moments because it does everything it needs to. It telegraphs exactly what you're trying to do. You know, if you do a kick, that can work a lot of the time, especially if the sell is correct. But like anything else, like for example, Psycho Mike's like the straight punch that he just does to the low below the belt region like has the opportunity to not be seen by like the people behind them, or you got to remember you're basically in a small black box theater and everything you do has to be seen from every single angle, because if one person can't tell what's going on, you may accidentally kill your crowd. So like that's my take.
I don't know. I mean, that's fair. And I mean, we can start getting into like philosophy of professional wrestling and how, how real we need to make it seem at any given moment. And, which there's a whole lot of leeway given to that. But there's still very much something visceral about a low blow, and then seeing it done either like in a creative way, such as rip cords, or in his case, just like sometimes just, as you said, just does a straight punch just directly to the groin, or just like somehow like subverting expectations and doing it a bunch of times in succession. Because I always like the Rube Goldberg low blows, like if you have a multi-person match and just people are falling into each other's groin in some way, shape, or form. I will never not pop for that.
You know what was a really good one that just popped into my head though, just thinking about that? It was like 2020. Yeah, it might have been 2020. Roman Reigns, he did that one to Jey Uso in their feud that they had where Jay's in the cover and goes 1, 2. Brother, has both legs right here, and Roman just shoots that arm up to get the shoulder up and hits a low blow
about
in
that.
it that way. Which like it looked a little odd, like it wasn't. But once Jay like got up on the cell, like, and you realize what happened, you're like, oh, that's good. That's good.
So yeah, and that goes into the more wrestling philosophy. Like, well, now there's plausible deniability. Like, in most matches, low blows, DQ. But if you can make it look like a full-on accident or incidental contact, boom, you got it. And you got that, or you can take the other route of like it accidentally happens, and now it's the impetus for a feud. Like it's had been like 1992, 93. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham, like that was the impetus for Barry Windham's heel turn on Dustin Rhodes. Is Rhodes accidentally ran into Ricky Steamboat's groin. Like they did Steamboat thought in his infinite wisdom thought it'd be a great idea to do a leapfrog on a 6'6" individual, because Dustin Rhodes is obscenely tall, and in the process, Dustin just low blowed him, and Dustin's like, no, I'm not gonna capitalize on this. I am a good honorable participant. And Barry Windham, former Horseman, is like, no, we want the tag team championship. Do something, do anything. And then basically by the time Barry Windham decided to do something himself, Steamboat recovered just enough to like roll him up and get a flash victory. And then Windham turned on Rhodes immediately after that. Low blow though, accidental low blow. Impetus for all that. I mean, I could go on more because I also like if I want to screw with people start talking about like favorite matches. Sometimes I slip in JT Energy versus Rip Studwell versus James Thomas for the SCW Pro Championship, because it's like nothing but low blows to James Thomas like throughout the entirety of the match.
Oh my god, when was that?
I think it's been about 3 years now, because that was during JT's title reign. And
yeah, I feel like that was. Oh man, that's gonna bug me. That's gonna bug me because I very distinctly. Oh, that's gonna bother me.
Like it's on YouTube.
It's in there too. It's in there.
Like I think it's on James Thomas's YouTube, and so it's out there for free. But I especially remember that one because again, they're live. That's just coming up an upper respiratory infection. Like I was fine, no fever for the most part, like doing okay. But my we'll call it my cardio, but like just my breathing wasn't at 100%. And then I saw that match. and I thought I was going to die by the time I was done. Like, I had no air in me just because James kept getting hit in the groin, and then every time he got hit, his voice got higher. Like, he didn't go straight to falsetto after that first one, so like brilliance on him. So like the first one, he's just doing regular screams, but like by the end of the match, now he's doing falsettos. And just like the gradual build and like the implausibility of how he just like every time he would get up, something would happen, and boom, groin shot, and brilliant. But oh man. Anyway, derailed things with like again. We went from art, philosophy, psychology to the scientific study of low blows in professional wrestling. Is this what you expected coming onto this here podcast?
Oh, of course, because I'm no more innocent than you are when it comes to going off on a tangent. Like I'm just as bad, if not worse. So I always know whenever I lock in to talk to someone, we're gonna go places.
But yeah. So, well, reining in. Speaking of SCW Pro, and then you referenced, what should have been a fourth tag team title win for you. But we'll bypass something. Maybe we'll come back to it. I don't know. We'll see how many more tangents we get on. But you are now a member of Animosity and SCW Pro, and now that you talk about like being in musical theater like that, I think that's like that makes a lot more sense too, considering behind the scenes Mark Storm's proclivities. but
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, then you should go back to listen to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast episode with Mark Storm, where we talk about his theater career in depth.
Oh man.
But so yeah, joking about the out of wrestling proclivities of Mark Storm. Animosity had been kind of established as, I don't want to say up and coming, because you already had the champion in there as in John Bonhart as well, but but we're still in certain areas like still kind of like on the rise in terms of like being like the most reviled act in the company. Like, so how did you kind of fit into the process of this? Your inclusion, at least for us members of the crowd, was just a huge shock and surprise.
Pretty simple. They saw a need. They saw gold left to acquire in the tag team championships. They knew John Bonhart needed to focus on not just his SCW Pro title, but at the time his Iowa championship as well. And so they took a look at the landscape, and at the time too, I had no idea what I was going to do. This was like right after The Chosen, who I had like, pledged my complete loyalty, was disbanded. Thanks, Shug. So they made a business decision, bring in a tag team specialist, because, and it bears repeating, I'm a 3-time SCW Pro Tag Team Champion. Should be fourth. Some might argue, like myself. But yeah, so that's the entire scenario. That is like how all that went down. They had a need. I was a perfect fit for it. And other than some administrative hiccups, it went perfectly.
As I said, it was a shock in the crowd because I'm not gonna lie, like my little group of folks like were fantasy bookings. They really hyped up this mystery acquisition for Animosity, and we're all fantasy booking it in our heads. Is it going to be a big return? Is it going to be somebody it was already established in the locker room? Oh, who's it going to be? And I full disclosure, Casey Jax wasn't on that list. Like we felt like we just, I don't know, overlooked with the Chosen kind of disbanding so soon. Didn't really, I don't know if we just didn't think you'd just kind of jump in with another group so fast, or you just, I don't know, despite your accolades already, just wasn't on the radar. But like, yeah, we didn't see that coming, and then you come out with Mark and Tori Fox and just blew of our little minds. masterfully
And
done.
that's, it's funny that you mentioned that. I truly think that that's something people are going to really start to understand is the more that people forget, the more that people overlook me, the more you're going to see of me. That being underrated is my brightest shining quality.
I've been this has come up in various forms with other people in like the last couple of weeks. So it's weird that I'm having this conversation again, but I've been calling it like the Plague Inc. Defense. I don't know if have you ever heard of Plague Inc.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love plaguing.
Yeah, but like one of the strategies to use to beat the game is basically lie low, and then now you're super lethal, like out of nowhere. Like you spread to everyone. You are you're very contagious. But since you're not really you're not viewed as a threat, people aren't putting a target on your back. And then all of a
Which again,
sudden,
like
bam, when the time is right, all of a sudden you evolve seizures and people are dying. Maybe that's probably not the best terminology used in this wrestling climate at the moment because maybe it's not. Maybe we'll wait a couple of weeks and it's a little less timely. But oops, accident.
no, my career up until this point is like chock full of success that people want to minimize for absolutely no reason. Like I have like always performed at my best, always brought my best out of people, and like always, shined in whatever role that I've needed to. And but like again, it's not the how do I say the like grand star power that people are looking for, so they just go, yeah, that's like okay.
Well, and being that underrated, I mean, again, when it comes your time to shine, like people, people are going to underestimate your skills there too, and you're going to pick up that shock to show that everyone, you're just as good, as you've claimed to be, and better than everyone else, may think you are. It's just a matter of, I think, at this point now getting to be timing, which great segue because over in D6, you seem to be the number one contender for their championship coming up. You got a little bit of a hurdle first because evidently you all get to pick your own your poison prior to that championship opportunity with Mr. Broadway. So,
Yes.
what like how like I'm not gonna lie that I'm an expert in the scenes everywhere. But is this like your first real kind of like shot at a company's main championship with Destination Six?
I would have to say so. Because I've had, I've been in, I've been in the ring with other like world champions with other companies, but as far as like, you know, like an opportunity to really like climb through, go get that chase that everyone wants to see. This is the first time that it's really been presented to me as an opportunity, and I'm very grateful. Just simply because like I like a lot of what they're doing over at Destination 6. I think like I view that place as a place dedicated to growing an in-home product because like they have like they own their own venue. They're presenting a unique style. The entire thing, like you walk into the venue in Macomb and you automatically know you're in for a wrestling show like you've rarely seen, and they work so hard to keep like pushing the envelope and present the best product that they can. So I'm more than happy for my opportunity to like keep chasing to be a fixture of a place like that.
D6, like I do find very interesting, and I don't show up there as much as I should because they're like one of like three companies that I really like to go to, and then they're always like on the same weekends. I have like I don't know, like wedding stuff or baby showers or whatever old man activities I have to schedule for my limited weekends, and I seem to miss it. But like I do try to sneak over there because it is like so unique. I mean, as a whole package, because the word venue, I think, doesn't do it service, because it's a church, ladies and gentlemen. It is an old church that
It's
they
so
have
cool.
that they've
It's so
bare
cool.
that they've barely, like the barest of bare minimums, like have remodeled. Like if anything, like their only remodeling really has just been like the removal of extra pews. I don't know. I've never been in that place prior to prior to its christening of as a wrestling venue, but you go to an old church and you sit in pews and watch wrestling. Like I guess that's how God intended it, to be blasphemous. uh, but and then on top of it, it's a six-sided ring. Well, I mean, it's still six-sided, but it's kind of oblong, which is kind of like extra
Yeah,
extra weird.
it's six-sided, but less like the let not. Oh, that's gonna bother me. Was it sexagon? No. Yeah,
uh
whatever the name for like the actual six, like basically not the TNA ring.
yeah,
It's more so it's kind of shaped like a diamond, like
yeah.
like the long way. It's got like one really like two really long sides, and then like the points are kind of like narrow at the end. It's strange to say the least, but like it's also, it's different. It's cool. Like it's non-traditional.
Oh, very much so. I mean, obviously TNA, I mean, has popularized the six-sided ring concept, and then of course, Mexico Lucha Libre does a lot in there as well. But I was just like, I always wonder, like, as a performer, like how difficult it is to kind of adjust to that, and then especially in the case of the venue. I can't remember if, like the actual name they gave like the venue, whether it's just the D6 Arena or whatever, but it's not full on in the round, comparatively speaking. Like the VIPs are in the like choir pit, but like 9/10 of the crowd is on one side of the ring. So you add in that with the six sides, like how difficult is that to adjust going from just a traditional wrestling ring and most traditional wrestling venues?
I didn't have too hard of a time with it. Um, I attribute that mostly towards like a lot of a lot of my style doesn't utilize a ton of the actual rings itself. Like I'm not, we're not, hey, come over to the apron, hop up on my shoulders, and like throw me out to the floor. I'm very, hey, let's go into the middle. We're gonna go over to this buckle, and we're gonna come slowly right back out. Like a lot of my style is very slow and deliberate, which for when you're working in a bunch of different kinds of rings of a bunch of different various shapes and sizes, like uh is very 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 key in times like that. um so like I didn't have too hard of a time with it, especially since like you get in there, you see like all of the like the crowd, the general crowd is in one way, you see the VIPs are behind you, that you work two places, and those places are both in your one long runway along those two like long sides. So it was a fairly easy adjustment. But that, I mean, that's just me and like my approach to it.
Fair enough. And since kind of we're on the topic anyway, like one of my like little nerd things is when talking to a lot of wrestlers, and you go to the venues such as an old church, like is this the more one of the more like is this the most unique venue you've gotten to work at and perform in, or have you gone places even kind of, we'll say, weirder or more notable?
It's definitely one of the more unique. I think one of the only one that I'd say is more notable is SCW. We obviously do Iowa City's downtown
Mhm.
block party every summer. And for like the first 2 years that I was there and wrestling for SCW, it got rained out both times. So we ended up having to move our show into the Angler Theater, which is awesome. The my favorite place we have ever wrestled to this date. Just simply like it, having wrestling on a stage is awesome and hilariously easy. You have one side to work towards, and there's 1,000 seats in it. It's amazing. Like it's easy. Everything feels bigger because you're in such an enclosed space with so many people. Yeah, and it makes the work easier as well, just because everyone is focused. Um, yeah, so that's like the only other like really big like unique place, that isn't like a uh what are they called, like a oh, what's the word, like the veteran centers, what are they called, what's that
Oh, like
gimmick?
the VFWs and
Yeah, like the VFW, the American Legion. That's what
oh,
I was
there we
looking
go.
for. Good
Okay.
lord. Yeah, like your American Legions, your community centers, your high school gyms. Like, those are all cool. Like, those are always like really cool and unique because you just never really know what you're gonna get with those. But like, those are D6 and the Angler Theater have been my two favorites so far.
I do think the angler's like really interesting, just because again, like it it's not really meant for wrestling per se, just because again the setup of it, but it's also just a very old, for those of you who are not from, well, say like the Iowa City area, it is just an old theater that they've kind of converted a wee bit to host more modern things. So it's not just an old movie theater, an old orchestra theater, but like they'll just do whatever there. And I've gone for things that weren't wrestling and thoroughly enjoy myself just because the atmosphere is so interesting. And I will say it's interesting seeing Buckethead at an old place like that, and you're sitting in these old wooden seats and some of the more ornate old things that they've kept from the angler's history, and then seeing like a 7 foot tall guy in a KFC bucket and a white mask just noodling on a guitar on on stage for 2 hours is mind blowing as well. But that's something
Does
entirely different.
does remind me to that It does remind me I should take 2 seconds to put over Wildwood too, because that's also one of that place is so near and dear to my heart. Also in the Iowa City area, just an old saloon style bar that's like pretty much just a powerhouse of live music in Iowa City. Bringing like they just had like Jelly Roll and Fozzy there like a year or two ago. We're talking to that scale, and just like a like a I can't imagine more than like 500 people can fit in there at a time. So like it's a great place.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
very much a old honky tonk, and just like how it's set up is very unique too, because it is kind of like a tower. Like, yeah, not, you wouldn't tell it from the outside, but how they set it up inside the venue is very much like a tower. And I both love and hate Wildwood at the same time, just because as someone who attends shows, like unless you reserve a table, like
Good luck.
seeing the action is very difficult because everything is right up on the barrier, because it's again not a place for that's it's a live venue where you just stare at something straight ahead on a stage, not something and usually with the stage be open you can get down on, like, we'll call it the dance floor area, which, because it's wrestling, has a wrestling ring there now too.
Yeah.
But it does make for like great footage, I think. And like regardless of how old that footage is now, I mean, SCW Pro still uses it in all of their intros, with Nevin Knoxville taking the spill
Dude,
off of
for real, man.
the taking on going off the second floor through a table. And I mean, why that man thought that'd be a great idea to do that, because he's 7 feet tall, he doesn't need to be flying through the air like that. But
Hey, he's still getting around good. All right, like
d- uh, I mean, my last vintage of him in ring was getting dunked out of the Prestige Rumble and then like crawling halfway to the through the crowd to like go pick up his shirt from, I assume it was his kid who he threw it to, because he was very targeted in his throwing. So it wasn't
yeah.
he was just tossing it to the crowd. So like he crawled back and then like crawled back to go do commentary, like all on his hands and knees the entire time. So it was a party.
And you know what? Good. And you know what? Good for him that happened too. Because my last like in ring run in with Nevin Knoxville was him eliminating me out of a rumble for one of our QC Storm like post game shows that we did. Eliminated me from Battle Royal. You'll never guess how. Hey kid, come here. Let me grab you around the neck right here. You're going up and over the rope. It's like, okay, there gonna be people there to catch me. God, I hope so.
I hope so.
No, I'm just kidding. He took great care of me in that. But yeah, it was just God, the footage for that though looked looked pretty gnarly.
I mean, it could be, or it could be the weird thing where like people who've been eliminated like 10 minutes ago are still hanging around the ring for whatever reason, and like, why are those people still there? I thought you got eliminated forever ago. Oh, they're there to be, to be warm bodies because something flew flew from a high place. And we're just gonna play bowling because I always, when it comes to the Wildwood, I think of that, and then which doesn't make the rounds near as much as when Shane Boucher got dumped off of the second floor too. But there wasn't there was just human bodies to break the fall for that one.
An absolute ton of them, and he was still pissing his pants.
I did hear a story where like he said he like was like, you know, trying to be the nonchalant about it, and then like afterwards he runs into Dante Leon, and Dante's just like, dude, and like there's like claw marks like, going down his arm. I thought I was doing okay. Evidently I gripped him a little tight.
Whoopsie.
But no, I mean, that being said, yeah, while it was an interesting venue, just if they tell you to reserve a table,
do it
ASAP. But yeah, that is like, it's a neat venue. I said the D6 arena is neat. Yeah, the Angler. Have you got to do the block party outside of the Angler when they actually
yeah
like what, like that's like 10,000 people like show up to those things. Like what's that, like what's going from like the usual like indie fair of, you know, maybe 200 people max depending on the venue, to going from 10,000 like screaming, like a lot of college kids around that area too.
You know what I've found, and like this is probably just inexperience on my part, probably a bit nerves too. I really only noticed like the first like 10 people like in that sort of like first row that are like really into it. It's like there isn't quite as much investment from like the 10,000 people who are just kind of casually looking like, oh, that's cool, then like those people that are like up front just like into it, you know. It definitely, like, you know, crowd pops are contagious. When like you get a couple people going, the rest are gonna follow. But I don't feel like it's as like, there's not as much investment for the outside, because there's just, you know, it's like, it's the block party, there's so much else going on. It's still, again, it makes for great footage, it makes for great visuals looking out into a sea of people while, you know, you do your thing, but it's not as intimate, you know. That's why I prefer, you know, I greatly prefer like the indoors in the Angler, just because people are coming in, they're out of the rain, and they're locked into it, which, you know, at the end of the day, like, getting to do what we do is like awesome. You know, there are very few people who get to do it, but it's such a different experience to do it to people, do it for people who, you know, are like invested in everything that you're doing, rather than, you know, just like, oh, hey, that's cool, that's going on. It's like, no, pay attention to me, I'm hurting myself over here, god damn it. Like,
do this for a hot dog and a handshake. The least you can do is make eye contact with me. But and I think this is kind of go with like my philosophy of like fans too. I think the two, like, honestly, like, the two best wrestling crowds are either like filled with people who are directly like right there explicitly to see like that company, that batch of wrestlers, or the flip side of it, where it's like, I compare like the Wake Brewing shows, where like they get a good turnout, but really like the percentage of actual like full on SCW Pro fans isn't that great. It's a lot of people just went like, well, there's free wrestling over at this place and they serve great drinks, let's go check it out. And and it leads to a different kind of experience too, which
same with like Mercado too.
Yeah,
not to cut you off, sorry.
No, Mercado's fine, you know, too. I mean, we could find hundreds of different examples, but I think like those, like in terms of like how like crowds work, like I think those are like the two perfect types of crowds, and they're definitely opposite ends of of the wrestling coin. You either want the people who know everything, or the people who are like almost just there because it's something cool to do, and now it's, I don't know, you get to kind of like perform for people who don't know what you can do yet. But this is coming from the guy who sits behind a microphone, and rightfully so, do not let me step through the ropes. So Yeah. Though one of these days I will be in the ring with the one called Manders and I will have my revenge.
But I apologize for you in advance. I'm so sorry for your future loss.
You are now.
That is a bad dude that you want revenge. You know what? Maybe just move on. Maybe revenge isn't worth it.
I tried to get a Merc once, and they're like people ask me who I want to wrestle, and I always say anyone and everyone, and I'm like, I will pay you to wrestle the one called Manders, and they're like, you're not paying me enough to do that.
That is a bad man. As a bad man, there's a number in his name. That's how freaky he is. Yeah.
Instead, it's the number one because he is the number one menace on the independent scene.
Love that guy.
But all right, before we threaten to go off the rails again, and we probably should have ended on like the proper soundbite you kind of gave at the end, but I had to go ruin things with my irrational hatred of the one called Manders. But I'll give you a chance to kind of plug what's coming up in the future and where can we find you online, in person, and if you got merch online, where can we get merch while we're at it?
Yes, so I'm available on pretty much all social media platforms, save for TikTok. So you can find me on X, Instagram, and Facebook. I think somewhere else I'm gonna forget, but yeah, that's at Casey Jax, Jax. You can find me streaming on Twitch ever so occasionally these days. That is at Real Casey Jax. Drop a follow so you can stay informed on the next time I do go live. No set schedule, just again, it's at this stage I did the first couple years of like really pressing the gas pedal to get my reps in, get established. I'm very much just like kind of trying to settle in and kind of find myself a little bit before I really go back into fully committing to a lot of the Casey Jax stuff. So that being said, also no merch available right now. I'm in the process of getting some of that re-squared away, but keep an eye out at future shows coming up. Concerning future shows, we touched on D6 in Macomb, Illinois, as well as we'll be in SCW Pro again on April 11th. I'm doing a show for a place called Homegrown Wrestling, and that should be in the Peoria area at the end of the month here on the 28th. And don't forget to tune in to Epic at the Stern Center in Rock Island for SCW Pro on April 25th.
Bringing in former WWE superstar Kalisto for that. Now,
yes, sir.
Now known as Samurai del Sol, former who had done appearances at random fact for folks who wrestled for SCW back, I want to say it was either 2009, 2011 ish. I think it was in the dark period that they don't care to actually talk about too much. But that's a whole nother podcast with a whole different cast of characters. But Casey, thank you for coming on and going all over the place in terms of this here conversation and places I had no intentions of ever going, but it happened, and it's great to drag you down with me in the process.
Oh, likewise, Rob. Likewise, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, this is something I love. Again, I love wrestling. I love getting the opportunity to discuss my own mindsets and philosophies with it, and compare it to others. See where we mesh. See where I can learn from other people as well. So, do really appreciate your time.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. so join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.